All right, the question is Serbia good, particularly Belgrade, for digital nomads 2021? Honest, no BS answer to that question is it's not so great. Okay, I'm going to give a long explanation to that. And again, I love Serbia. I love Belgrade. I've had an amazing time here. I've spent 3 months in this country, but there are some problems with it that do not make it a digital nomad paradise. There's a reason that when you watch videos on YouTube that in other places that you don't see people staying here for the full 2-3 months. They're coming in, they're hitting it for 30 days, and they're gone for the most part, depending on what type of work they do. If they're YouTubers, maybe they stay longer. By the way, I put up YouTube videos. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't make a living doing it. So I'll tell you the reasons why I think that, and things that I think, if people are interested in making this a digital nomad hub, that would alleviate that problem of it not being so good. Okay, so to give a little background information here, I have been here, I'm coming up on a full 90 days, and I'm leaving very, very soon. And so I've had a lot of experience in the city as far as how it works for digital nomads and what their problems are. I've talked to several people who are remote workers here that were passing through, most of them for like 2 to 3 weeks. And so I think I have a very good perspective at this point on exactly how the city is for that. So first problem is contracts. Belgrade is the place of long-term contracts. So for internet service, and I'm talking fiber here, they want you to have long-term contracts. So I think the places that I looked, there are basically 3 major providers. You've got MTS, you've got Telenor, and I think the other one's A1. But essentially, in order to get fiber internet installed in your apartment or your home or wherever it is you're staying, they want a 2-year contract. Now, the rates are great. I mean, it is cheap, it is high speed, it is super internet. No problems whatsoever when I have had fiber internet in an actual home here. I think most of the ones that I had were through MTS when I did actually have the fiber at the places I was staying. No problems whatsoever. No big deal. Now, there is a problem that there are caps on the amount of data you can use. You can pay more, and you can make those caps go up. And if you go over those caps, you can pay at the end of each month. So a little bit more on that in a minute. So the problem that you have is, realistically, you've got, outside of hotels, and that's just really not an option for most digital nomads, long-term travelers who are going to be here 3 months, for instance. They're going to stay the full 3 months that they can get in the country, the full 90 days, is your choices are basically, if you can find somebody to do short-term rental for you, month to month or a 3-month lease, that's going to be very rare. I actually did find that, and I got very, very, very lucky on that. Or you're going to do Airbnbs. Airbnbs, it's not going to be as much of a problem, but you're going to pay 2, maybe 4 times as much as you would if you were going through a lease. Certainly more so if you were going to go through a 6-month through a 1-year lease. But they're much more used to those long-term leases. So on Airbnb, you're probably going to have high-speed internet, but you're going to be paying a ton for it. You're going to be paying so much more than market. Now, it's going to be less than living in the United States. It's going to be less than living in London, England, or something along those lines as far as the cost of living of the place that you're going to be staying. And so in those cases, you probably won't have a problem. I didn't have any problems with it when I was using internet in those places, but you're going to be paying a premium for it. Now, if you get a short-term lease, which is like a 3-month lease, which is what I did in my case, and I talked to several landlords, and this is really not just Serbia. it's pretty much all over the Balkans that I saw. So it's not harping just on Serbia. It's all over Southern Europe that they want those long-term contracts, not just for leases but also for internet. So the problem I had when I had entered into my lease, I got a really, really good deal on my lease. But my landlord was not interested in putting down a 2-year contract on fiber, and I really wasn't interested in paying for 2 years of service when I was only going to use 3 months of it. So the compromise in my situation, and I think we ended up going through Telenor, was to get what was basically a mobile hotspot. Okay, and it was extremely reliable for the most part. With the exception of some video uploads and stuff. But you were capped. You were still capped at 150 gigabytes of data a month, and you could top it off one time for an additional 50. So you could have an additional 200, a total of 200 gigabytes. Excuse me, for the entire month. So the cost of that was 3,000 dinar, which is $30 US dollars. And then to top it off for the additional 50 gig was $7 US dollars, or 7,000 dinars. So very affordable from a Western standpoint as far as the United States, much cheaper than what we would pay in the United States. Okay, so my Canon battery died, and it was the last one I had for tonight. Just ran out of juice. I've been filming all day. So, had to switch up cameras. We'll finish this off on the GoPro Hero 9 Black, and hopefully I've got enough battery on this one left to get me through this video. And I switched locations because the lighting on the couch in there sucked. So it's a little bit better in here. Hopefully you can see better, and hopefully you can hear okay. So, I was talking about the Telenor the Telenor device, and that you get 150 gigabytes for roughly $30 US a month. Plus you can top it off once for an additional $7 US dollars and get another 50 gigabytes, which brings you to 200 total for a 30-day period. Excuse me, the pollution's got me all stopped up. So that sounds like a ton of data to a lot of people who don't do remote work. And even if you do remote work, it is a lot of data. So you can watch YouTube videos, you can watch Netflix, you can stream other things. And if you're doing just voice over internet protocol calling, if you're just doing database work, or you're doing other types of stuff where you're just doing research online, that's probably plenty of data for one person. Certainly for one person that would be. However, if you are doing video editing online, or uploading lots of different video content, or if you are participating in like Zoom conference calls where you are the host and you have multiple people on those lines, then that data gets eat up pretty quick. And so I haven't done it really here in a month or so, but sometimes I have to do, back in the United States, I have to do Zoom court appearances because everything's remote right now. I am an attorney, and so I'll be on a conference call with a judge, with other litigants and participants on there for 2, 3, 4 hours on a Zoom call, and there may be 16, 17 people on that call. And when that happens, I burn through data very, very, very quickly on there, and so it can really eat up space. Put that together that we have 2, sometimes 3 remote workers where we're living, that data gets eat up very, very quick. So that is one of the main problems with Serbia, with Southern Europe, is those long-term contracts, and mine was further complicated because of getting short-term leasing. So getting short-term leasing in Belgrade, what you'll find out a lot of times is people are renting out their deceased father or mother or grandparents' apartment that they had there. And so you get into a lot of granny furniture, I guess is the best way to describe it. These problems that I've already talked about and that I'll continue to talk about, here are some others in the rest of this video, they don't apply to you. If you're a 2-week tourist coming into a hotel with good internet, or you're coming into a Airbnb for a short stay of less than a month and you've got MTS or some other fiber optic cable network in there that gets you the internet, then you're not going to have any of these problems as far as internet or leases. You're going to pay a premium, but coming in as a tourist, you expect that, you understand that, and you can have a great vacation in Belgrade and see all kinds of stuff and enjoy the city on there. The same is true as far as Belgrade being a good place for a long-term stay. So if you're wanting to stay in Belgrade for a year, basically become an expat, then a lot of these problems disappear because you can do a 1-year lease. And with that, you can get fiber contracts, although I still think the shortest one I could find was 2 years. But I think you would find that a landlord would be more willing to work with you on a 2-year contract if you were willing to sign a 1-year lease in order to get that facilitated there. I think a lot of those problems would disappear and your costs would go down. We looked at some apartments for 1-year leases and super affordable from a United States coming in perspective. Again, these were city center in Belgrade. They might be a little more costly than what your normal Serbian person would be used to, because the costs downtown are going up. I'm very much cognizant of that. So if you're staying for a long term, again, those problems kind of disappear. Next problem that you have as a short stay traveler, somebody who's staying 3 months or less, but more than your average tourist that's a couple weeks, is that Serbia has, and some of the surrounding countries have this law as well, but it goes back to old Yugoslavia. And it's a law that basically, I guess maybe they thought all Westerners were spies. And so back in the day, they probably weren't wrong. Probably a lot of the people that were coming into Yugoslavia probably were spies. But it basically requires any foreigner, wherever they're staying, for the person who owns that establishment, whether it be a hotel, an apartment, you're staying with a relative or as a guest somewhere, those people are required to register that foreigner with their passports with the local police precinct. And so if you're staying at a hotel, absolutely not a problem. The hotel will take your passports, they'll scan them in, they'll register you. It's a very simple process. You come in if you want what's called a white card, which basically shows that you're registered with the police. You can come in the next morning to the hotel, ask them for a copy, they'll batch it, they'll print it for you. It's good. They do it all the time, all day long for people. If you are doing it with a private landlord, one, you're going to have to get that private landlord to agree to go register you. Now, in my case, with my 3-month lease, that was not, in fact, my landlord came out and asked me, did I want to go that day with them so they could register me with the police? And I'm not required to go. They just have to take my passport. One, I wanted to keep my passport with me, but two, I wanted to go see the process. So I went down there to get that done. And it took probably 45 minutes to get it done. My landlord was kind of not happy with the, I guess the bureaucracy as she saw it. I thought it was kind of humorous, but so it becomes a problem with, for instance, say Airbnb hosts. And I've talked to people who their Airbnb host did not register them. They asked them about it. They told them it wasn't required. My guess is a lot of these people are trying to get out of paying taxes for doing overnight rentals and so forth in the city. Could be wrong on that. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe they just don't want the headache. But a lot of people have complained online as well of that with Airbnbs or short-term hosts that they don't register them with the police. And the law, at least my understanding of the law, is that it puts the requirement on the actual host, the person that whose home you're staying in, to register, and that you can't just walk down to the police station and register yourself. I guess you could go and report them for not registering you. But the law specifically requires the Yugoslavian, I'm sorry, thinking about the old law, Serbian citizen or Serbian resident who has that facility to actually go and register you. Whether or not you as a tourist could get in trouble for that or not, I don't know. I've never heard of anybody doing that. I do know that some people have talked about in some online forums and things that it can cause you problems as far as getting certain types of things if you don't have that. I'm not sure what types of services they're talking about to have the white card. I had mine the whole time. I never needed it for anything. I was never once asked for it in the times that I crossed the land borders. It may be different actually it's not. When I flew down to Athens, I was not asked for it at the airport. So I've never been asked when I've left the country for the white card. No one has ever requested that from me. But it is something that is required under the law, and you might not be able to get that done as a short stay guest if you're not going to be in hotels. All right, the final thing that I can think of that kind of makes it not the greatest place in the world to be a short-term traveler, a non-tourist, or a digital nomad is the co-working spaces. And again, it boils back down to contracts on here. So I went to a co-working space probably 4 or 5 times during the last 2.5 months. And now, a lot of the co-working spaces are outside of what you think of the city center, and those are much more reasonable. But in the city center, on the walking street, went to one there, very nice co-working place. It was 3 floors. The internet worked really good. Didn't have any problems with that. It wasn't very crowded the times I was there, but they were the only one in the area that would allow you to come in without at least a 30-day contract. Most of them wanted a minimum of 3-month contracts on there. And they were charging me, I want to say it was $10 a day, or no, it was 10 euros. It was 10 euros a day to use the facilities. Now, that may seem like a good price to somebody from, I don't know, London or Berlin or something. I don't know. I will tell you, where I come from in the United States, $300 US dollars a month would be what I would pay for a co-working space to go to every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week access. So I don't consider that to be a good deal. It's certainly not going to be a deal that's good enough that is going to attract me as a long or a short-term traveler or a digital nomad to spend a lot of time there. Now, in my case, I'm thinking about home bases at this point, so I'm considering Serbia for something different than what I'm doing with all of my rest of my travels, because I'm looking for a home base in Europe. So those things, I'll be looking more towards an expat standpoint at this point, more so than a short-term traveler in the future as far as Serbia goes. But if you are a digital nomad, those are some of the problems. I think those could be alleviated if Serbia was interested in attracting those type of remote workers and things, by having some sort of a program to where you can get internet access by paying for the device if it's already installed. I mean, because if the company has already installed fiber optic internet in the building and you're willing to pay for the routers and equipment out of pocket, then why require a contract? It doesn't make any sense to me. Tie it to a credit card and they pay by the month. If they don't bring the equipment back, they've already paid for it. Maybe they get a deposit back if they bring it back. That would alleviate a lot of that. And I've used that in the United States when I have done short-term leases there. So I think that would be one way to do it. I don't know of a way with the real estate market to really change that. I know that there are some places right outside Belgrade, actually. I don't know how they're doing right now, but they were developing co-working houses and stuff, and that might be a way to sort of attract some remote workers in there. Other than that, I don't know how you get landlords together. I don't know what the solution is there. If you go to Asia, short-term rentals is very easy. Again, you're going to pay more, as you should, a premium. You can do that in rural areas in the United States. Again, in the United States, very similar to Serbia and Southern Europe, is that they're going to want longer term contracts with the lease. And if you don't, they're going to charge you a premium on there. But those are the real big hiccups that I see. A lot of places, if you look at Georgia, if you look at Thailand, if you look at Bali and some other places around the world that have become digital nomad hotspots or remote worker hotspots, those barriers don't exist to the extent they do here, or they do in Belgrade, to entry. So those are my thoughts. The final thought is using it as a home base in 2021. I think that in normal times, using Belgrade as a home base to travel around this region, I'm not certain there's a place better to do that, quite frankly. For the costs and the value for costs that you get in Belgrade, for the activities that are available in Belgrade, for the infrastructure that is available in Belgrade, I'm not certain that you can find a place in this area of the world that's better for that. You've got Nikola Tesla Airport. You've got a really great bus system, private bus system going out to other countries that you can use. Train systems, not so good, but you do have a really good bus system. The problem right now is that Serbia requires testing to come back into the country across land border, air border, anything. And so at a minimum in this region of the world, you're going to be paying $32, $38, up to $90 to get a test to come back every single time you leave, okay? So unless you're a resident or you have been vaccinated in Serbia, then you're going to have to get that test every single time. Now, I've crossed the land border coming back into Serbia 3 times now. 4 times. I have always had the test done. I've had the paper with me. I've never once been asked for it. Again, I would always obey the law. And so if you do, you're going to end up having to pay that premium. And I will tell you that if you're going to nearby countries that require you to have some sort of a test to get in, that you're going to pay through the nose for it in Serbia. I think it's 9,000 dinars to get a test right now in Serbia, which makes it, I can't think of a country in the region that is higher than that. That's 90 bucks US dollars. If you've got to go to a neighboring country that requires that test. And then you got to get tested there to come back in. So the amount of money can add up very quickly there. In normal times, I think that, that's not a problem. But right now, that's an additional cost. So if you're going to hop out to Croatia, to Montenegro, or to whatever countries around here require it, and you're going to come back and use Belgrade as a home base, you leave 4 or 5 times, you got $500 to $1,000 in additional expenses. And that makes it much less desirable on there. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Serbia as a place for digital nomads or slow travelers. I think if you're a tourist, if you're willing to come to Serbia and stay long-term, become an expat, open a business, buy a piece of real estate that you can live on, and stay for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, keep it as a home base for part of the year and a home base somewhere else, then I think this is a great place for you. Absolutely great place. But I think as long as those barriers are in place, then Belgrade's going to have a problem attracting short-term remote workers. And maybe they don't want them, who knows. But anyway, that's my thoughts. See you in the next video.